Hi, friends. I hope everyone can hear me. I think I can see your comments in the comments section. Um, Maybe LB can let me know if you can hear me. I hope everybody's doing okay and staying safe and healthy. Thank you so much for joining today. And I'm very glad to be able to read you some poems from here in my home in Kansas City from Refusal from LSU Press. Thank you so much to the wonderful folks at LSU Press, to LB for putting this together, to James, my wonderful editor, and Catherine for helping me bring this book to life. I actually went to LSU for undergraduate, my undergraduate degree, and so when I found out that LSU would be publishing Refusal, it felt like coming home, and I'm so grateful for that. Go Tigers! Thanks, LB. Today, I'm going to read you 5 poems from Refusal, and then please feel free to make comments or ask questions in the comment section on Facebook, and I'll be glad to answer them or have a brief conversation after the reading. First, I'd like to tell you a little bit about the impetus of the book. When I wrote this book, I was feeling isolated in a way that I think a lot of us are feeling today, though hopefully slightly different. I had experienced psychological and emotional abuse, and often perpetrators of this kind of abuse seek to alienate or isolate us from our friends and family. So I set out to write a series of epistolary poems or letters, and many of those in the book are dedicated to my friends and family, so I'll read some of those today. The other day, I got a real live snail mail letter from a friend, and I hadn't gotten one of those in so long, and it made me start thinking again about how important correspondence is, especially during this time. So not just emails, but the kind of correspondence that helps us to slow down and to reflect on the state of things and to connect with people we love in a more sustained way. Speaking of isolation too, hi Lisa. These comments are fun. It's like, I feel like you all are really here. So anyway, speaking of isolation, I've been thinking a lot about how grateful I am during this time to have a safe and happy home, and about those who are not experiencing the same, people for whom home may be a dangerous place. If you have the means, please consider donating to a local domestic violence advocacy center in your area. And I just want to say, too, that there is a trigger warning here, as I'm going to be reading some poems that sort of confront and discuss issues of abuse and violence. I wanted this reading today to center around the dedication in my book, and that reads, "To all writers of unsent letters," and to encourage all of us to remember to correspond with our loved ones. As I've experienced, it can be easy to fall into solitude these days. And the connections we make with other people, even in the written word, I think are crucial to our survival. So the first poem that I'll read is one of the epistolary poems in the book, and it's dedicated to my friend Tainum. Hi, Tainum, if you're here. This is Epistle from the Hospital for Text Messaging. I have made of myself a rabbit. I can no longer speak. Language is only the click, click, click of my heart ticking faster now. I stepped out of my dress. I auto-filled myself. I slipped the gray skins over my head. I know you love to watch the animal of me, my fast-pounding brain. How I enter the garden to pluck berries with my teeth, then the ellipses of my leaving. I know you love to watch the end of me. I vanish beyond the field whose borders I built with your 1,000 barbed unsaids. I vanish into the sky. I vanish into the moon, this lemon slice of dead volcano. Here I wait, my fingerless ears poised as satellites, projecting my rabbit-shaped silence on space's blank walls. Something I don't understand about myself makes people want to hurt me. This next poem is dedicated to my mom. Hi, Mom. And this epistle is also a guzzle. So if you're not familiar with the form, you'll notice the repetition of an end word through each couplet in the poem. And in this one, that word is sound. The guzzle also calls upon its writer to name themselves in the final couplet in the third person. So you'll hear that too. And this poem was written from the Henares River, which is in Alcalá de Henares, which is a town in Spain, sort of outside of Madrid. And I was there teaching study abroad. It's very beautiful there, and the buildings are all reinforced. The rooftops are reinforced so that the storks that live in the community can have spaces to build their nests. It's really beautiful. Epistle from the Henares River. Still I can hear it. In Spain, the sound of a man hating me so loud. He invented new sounds, tearing through our apartment, conducting his own anger. Storks made throat sounds like brass knuckles against bone. I startled through rooms, a spooked horse. This was the sound of me becoming what I wasn't. Scared thing, liar. My mother's voice on the phone, the only sound I could take. I was afraid to say what was happening to me. Her plane sounds 5,000 miles gone. Me, listening. The headphone cord roped around my neck, sounding its split-rained hymns in my ears. Call the police. This is how you call the police in Spain. 112. Sounds of hooves in her voice. He began to put his hands on me, and she made a little sound, trying to listen. Then, no sound. This is how you command a horse. Sounds calm, low, whoa, whoa. So when I was pinned and he ripped the headphones from my ears, the sound of my mother's voice clattered against the hardwood, a child falling down a well. A sound that haunted my dreams for years. Jenny, Jenny, an Atlantic away, my mother's futile sounds. This next one was also written during my time in Spain. It's called Eating Alone, which might be something we're all a little familiar with these days. Eating alone. Hija, she says, eres triste. And her hands work my neck, my shoulders, my calves, my feet. I'm eating poke by the sea, salmon pink as tongues, watermelony cubes of tuna, mangoes slipping like gossip through my chopsticks. I've been alone so long, I'd welcome anyone's hands around my neck. For one, the waiter says, and sits me in the corner. Even the accordionist avoids my gaze. The gazpacho is thickened with day-old baguette, a plate of the tiniest squares of cucumber, tomato, onion. I roll them like dice into the cold soup. Amor de amarillo, the bartender calls me. Does he mean yellow or gold? Does he mean amber? Does he mean I have value? I am not a lemon. I am not a canary, though I am often taken into dark caves. Is anyone waiting for me to stop singing? Is anyone waiting for me to rise from the ground? I am not gold. Maybe I am thickened resin. Here is my heart preserved. Here is myself made of tree. At the Bar del Pla, I'm allowed a little seat, a little food. The couple next to me never stops kissing. I try the white wine with Bonito. I try the red thunder in a glass with the octopus bomb. Something ticks inside me. The girls at the next table keep looking and laughing. After you, everything tastes like a bruise. Okay, so speaking of poems for friends, this next one is for Erin. Hi, Erin. Different kinds of sadness. Sometimes a friend can save your life. As when you drove in from Albuquerque, the day I left the man I thought would kill me. We went to the train station and sat among the Beaux-Arts pediments and bas-reliefs, having a cocktail called the Manhattan Kansas. You brought a package of fresh tortillas, some butter, some cheese, will survive. The we, a sort of kindness, a kind of sadness. The drinks were garnished with shriveled figs instead of maraschinos, which was a different kind of sadness. The station was built in 1914, and no one who can remember 1914 is left. Your eyes began to time travel behind your white-rimmed glasses, and I knew you were thinking about your son. The lives we have chosen not to live are enough to fill the whole day's trains with ghosts and ghosts and ghosts. But there are also people who have known you forever, which is yet another kind of sadness because you've only just met. I realize I have a little more time than I thought, so I think I might read 2 more poems. This next poem is for Pooja. Hi, Pooja. So I mentioned experiencing an abusive relationship earlier, and something really incredible happened to me after I got out of that relationship, which is that a year later, someone who had been through a similar experience with that person reached out to me. And we talked on the phone for hours. We shared our experience. And that sharing has brought about such an important friendship in my life. And we've been through so much together since then. So anyway, this poem is for Pooja, and this is another letter poem, an epistolary poem, but this one's also an abecedarian. So you might hear that every line in the poem begins with A, B, C, D, and so on. Letter to my new sister. Abusive? Not him. You were crazy jealous, berating, while I wielded my brain like a bow. Consent, he argued, was you sharing his bed. Divorce, proof I had no heart. All that charisma. See? Everyone loves him. Hear the thunderous applause? Fear the man who brandishes a black axe, gaslit, flint until we sparked. He always knew we deserved it. I, the only letter he spoke. Jay, you said, tell me it's not in my head. I'd recall no kindness. You gotta earn kindness, baby, he'd croon. Let's loosen the hinges of his rage and run. Marry our own lock-windowed nights with new wisdom. Only sisters can be bound like this in trauma. P, did I love you before I knew you? Now we ask questions. I shut up too much, didn't I? Raising his pointed finger against my own temple, shoot the mind right out of me. True, we tested cliff sides under the mooning face of a man who cried love. Voracious for gilded mirrors he held, then shattered. Wherever you are, I am with you, allied beyond our ex who thieved even our eyes. Let's excise our ex-selves. Yes, leave them. Yes, leave him. Unzip the monster from his cruel suit and fly. And then I'm going to read one more poem, and feel free to ask a question or leave a comment in the comments feed. I can see some hellos here. Hi, everybody. So this last poem is called Loving Ophelia Is, and I didn't really read from this series in the book, but there's a series of poems in which I sort of reimagined Ophelia as a character who she's sort of like an iteration of Refusal. She refuses to be dictated by a male narrative of her life and her end. She ends up fighting a Demogorgon, which some of you are familiar with, but this poem does not have the Demogorgon in it. Okay. Loving Ophelia is. Loving Ophelia is loving a ghost. And loving a ghost is loving yourself. And loving yourself is a sudden sorrow. And a sudden sorrow is the place where the river pools. And the place where the river pools is not suicide. And not suicide is confronting the unknown. And confronting the unknown is the active condition of womanhood. And the active condition of womanhood is the beauteous nature of Denmark. And the beauteous nature of Denmark is lovesickness. And lovesickness is obsession with a version of yourself. And obsession with a version of yourself is egomania. And egomania is a room of mirrors. And a room of mirrors is love and hate simultaneously. And love and hate simultaneously is the trick of abuse. And the trick of abuse is a vexation of the mind. And a vexation of the mind is the feeble dawn of gaslight and tea. And the feeble dawn of gaslight and tea is an overbearing husband. And an overbearing husband is a soliloquy of cliches. And a soliloquy of cliches is the misery of scholars. And the misery of scholars is an old friend's skull. And an old friend's skull is a sudden sorrow. And a sudden sorrow is holding one's breath. And holding one's breath is swimming away. And swimming away is the other shore on which Ophelia has woken. Thank you so much for being here. Now I'm going to scroll through these comments. Hi, everybody. Okay, I think I'm going to go down to the bottom here. Hi, Heidi. Hi, Amanda. Let's see here. Does anybody have any questions or has something they want to talk about? Maybe a joke. Ooh, new comment. Okay, does writing energize or exhaust you? Oh, that's such a good question. Writing energizes me. I think I've been thinking a lot about like quarantine time and being an introvert during quarantine time. And I think to some people I might sort of seem like an extrovert, but by definition, I feel like I take my energy from myself. So I love to be around people and socialize, but also need that alone time to re-energize. And writing is a part of that alone time for me. And it's interesting, I don't know, I'd love to hear other people's thoughts on this, because during this time of quarantine, I've been thinking a lot about like how it becomes even more and more exhausting to go out into social spaces. And we have that like extra anxiety and fear these days. But yeah, I sort of wonder what it's going to feel like to go back into the world and socialize, and how much energy that's going to take. And also I'm really excited to read all of the poems that come out of this time. I know a lot of people are writing now. I think also it's been difficult to write now. And I've been trying to sort of let myself off the hook, and, think about productivity in different ways than I think I did before COVID-19. Okay, here's a question from Heidi. Thanks, Heidi. A lot of the forms in the book, both traditional, I guess I should read it out loud. A lot of the questions in the book, both traditional, guzzle, abecedarian, and invented, daisy chain, involve repetition. Ooh, do you feel like this paired with the content of abuse? Heidi, that's like a really important question. Yeah, I think, we talk about abuse as the cycle of abuse, right? That's something that a term in therapy that I learned. And so, part of that cycle is apology, love bombing, grooming, and then and then things get dark again. So yeah, I think both dealing with the cycle of abuse in a situation like that, and then dealing with the sort of circular rationalization that happens to a victim of abuse is something I was thinking about a lot when I wrote these poems. So the answer is yes, Heidi. Thank you for that question. I'm just making sure there aren't any other questions in this lovely chain. Thank you all for being here. Okay, Ruth. Hi, Ruth. Ruth writes, Jenny, how do you feel about writing about someone else's wrongdoing toward you? I feel that refusal to stay silent is both brave but challenging. Just curious how it feels to you / how you think of that act of refusing to keep quiet via a poetry that is shared with others. That's such a good and scary question, Ruth. I actually wrote these poems, some of them in the midst of what I was experiencing, and had this moment of sort of like reclaiming myself or my voice, and sent them out to journals to be considered for publication, and then withdrew them all in fear. And speaking of cycles, that was something I did for months, up to a year, until finally I just decided to let it go. And my friendship with Pooja, who's here, really inspired me, because one of those poems had been published, and because of that, she reached out to me. She recognized her experience in that. And it's a really scary thing to talk about, and there have been consequences, but I feel like in doing that, in sort of having to take the step of putting this story and my voice out there, the connections and the friendships, and the sort of reinforcement I've gotten has been really powerful. And I think my hope also is to sort of try to be one voice in destigmatizing abuse, and to be able to speak openly about our experiences. And I think that's a step towards change, and a step towards forgiveness, and a step towards many of us being able to just share our stories and not feel afraid, or feel afraid and push through that. Thanks, Ruth. Thanks, Mom. Okay. Maybe I'll give it just a few more seconds for another question. Okay, Patty. Okay, intrigued by the structure of Epistle in Utero, would you talk about why you chose this? Yeah, so, okay. Hi, Patty. Patty's my friend in Baton Rouge, the mother of my old roommate, Amanda. Hi, Amanda. Okay, Epistle in Utero looks like this. And so when I wrote this book, I was playing a lot with form in a way that I hadn't done before. And I wanted to sort of try some forms that that maybe before I thought might seem gimmicky, or might seem like a challenge to say something with. I was sort of pushing myself out of my comfort zone in different ways. Here's another example of a concrete poem in the book, Self-Portrait as Nothing, with a hole cut out in the middle. I was sort of inventing these forms to find different ways of saying what I wanted to say. And a lot of this has to do with Ruth's question about writing about someone who, someone else's wrongdoing towards you, or writing about something that is deeply personal and has real life consequences, because you're writing about real life experiences and people. And so I think trying different forms, trying persona, trying different voices helped me to sort of be able to talk or to write about those things. And this one in particular, I sort of imagine it as a pregnancy. And so I was writing from the perspective of my unborn self in a letter to my mother. And so, yeah, I was just kind of playing with it, with shape and the way that it looks on the page. Thank you for that question. Okay. Does anybody else have any more questions? Thank you all for so much love and support. Okay. Okay, Cameron, what are the different elements present when you found yourself being most creative in writing poetry? Elements. I hope that I'm understanding the question, Cameron. I think that, I was talking a little bit before about solitude, and I think solitude is important to me a lot of times in writing, just because, maybe it's just partly because it's embarrassing, I have to read my work aloud and move around and shuffle papers and be very disorganized. So I found that being alone is usually conducive for that. But also I've experienced the ways community is important to writing. And like right now, my friend Bridget Lowe and I are writing poems, we're corresponding in poetry. And that has been a really powerful experience to me. I think also workshops, if I'm able to attend them, or residencies where there is the element of solitude, but there are other people busy working around me that inspire me. So yeah, I think solitude, but surrounded by friends. And then I'm looking at the word elements and thinking also about nature. I think nature is really important to the discovery process of writing. Okay, Pooja. Is this a question? Yeah, okay. Your poetry literally changed my life. Our friendship changed my life, Pooja. I've long admired your ability to share your truth in such powerful ways. I'm not a poet nor a writer, so I'm wondering if you could share anything about your writing process. Do you wake up ready to write? Do you sit down and have committed writing time? Yeah, I think that's a good question, and I feel like it changes. As I think many of us can attest to, life gets really busy, and it's a wonderful concept to be able to write every day and to be in that practice, but it's also almost impossible with work and everything else, family. And so I often feel like I write when I need to write. And I would like for that to happen more often. But lately, I don't know if anyone else is experiencing this, but during the time of coronavirus, I've had wild dreams. So I've woken up and written them down and revisited them later when I had some more time to sit and think with them. And I also think in some ways I'm kind of constantly writing in my head. And so when I'm ready to sit down and write, I've really worked something out, or I'm working through something that then writing sort of helps me get a little bit further in that process. For me, it's at night or early in the morning, or sometimes in the middle of the night. I'm very envious of my friends who wake up at 5 a.m. Well, period, because that's impossible for me, but also who wake up at 5 a.m. and have this ritual of writing every morning. I think that's amazing, and I just, can't do it. Let's see. How do you edit your own poems? From Maggie, my old student. Hi, Maggie. Do you put them away for a while or immediately start to edit as writing? Oh, I see what you're saying. How do you know a poem is finished? It depends on the poem. I had my professor David Keplinger encouraged me to do something where I did get in the practice of writing as much as I could, and then he called these poems every once in a while, maybe a month of being in the practice of writing, a poem just sort of falls from the sky, and he would call that a poem from the future. And so I think a poem like the last one I read, Loving Ophelia Is, was a poem from the future, and it's a result of writing and thinking and studying and researching something, but then the poem just sort of comes fully formed as this gift. But other times when I'm working on a project, or I'm researching and I'm writing about something I want to be writing about, the editing process is longer, and so I'll write something and I'll have to step away from it and take at least a couple of weeks away from it and then revisit it, because if I try to edit while writing, I don't know, it doesn't work for me. The material there is too fresh or something, and I don't have that perspective of future me revisiting the poem? That's a good question. Thanks, Maggie. Okay. Oh yeah, and LSU Press, maybe that's LB. Thank you for mentioning Pleiades Press too. We've got some very exciting new books coming out in October, and several that just came out in February. So check those out. PleiadesPress.org. And LSU distributes those books. I'm very excited about Molly Brodak's book. Molly unfortunately passed away in March, and she was such a brilliant and talented person. So I feel very privileged to be the editor of her forthcoming collection. That's the cipher. You can see the cover there on the comments. Okay, maybe one more question if anybody. Oh, whose artwork is behind me? This is the artwork of Donna, who is my almost 5-year-old, almost stepdaughter. We were actually supposed to get married on Saturday, but alas, but that should happen soon. Donna is a very talented young artist. She inspires me. Okay, I think I'll call that good. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. I appreciate all the support, and I'm just so glad to have this community with you when we can't be together. So I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you, everybody.